Senator Weiner, this is broadcast, and you may begin whenever you're ready.
Mr. Chair, we're a go.
Thank you, broadcast. Thank you, Senator Weiner. The Nevada Youth Legislature will now come back to order. Moving on to itinerary item number 2, I would like to turn this meeting over to, and I'm so sorry if I mispronounce your name. Like I said in our meeting before, if I mispronounce it, don't be afraid to correct me. I would like to turn this meeting over to Jeanette Bells from J.K. Bells and Associates Incorporated to begin our training.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. Thank you so much. That pronunciation was perfect. Thank you for the time of the Nevada Youth Legislature today. And I just want to do one procedural thing and check with Tina. Will I be sharing my screen, or will someone else be doing that on the PowerPoint?
You'll need to share your screen.
Okay, thank you. Can you see that or not?
We
Yes.
see it. Thank you.
Okay, let me just get it going. All right. Well, thank you very much for your time today. My name is Jeanette Bells, and I'm now with Bells and Case Government Affairs. My associate and I have formed a DBA, and she joined me about 2015. So has a good 7 years under her belt now, and added to the experience of Bells and Case very nicely, and brings that very youthful perspective to what we do, which I'm thrilled about.
Ms. Bells, this is
Yeah.
broadcast. We are currently on the broadcast seeing your notes. So if you could go to where it says swap presenter view, there you go. Thanks so much.
You. I'm trying to figure out how to get it on the other screen, so I'm actually looking at you all, but I can't quite figure out how to do that right now, so I apologize. So I will be looking the other way. I have 2 screens, so my time with you today is going to be to talk about negotiation skills. So negotiation. Well, why on earth should you care about negotiation? Your career path may not already be set, but are you going to settle peace in the Ukraine? Or are you going to be a used car salesman? Maybe not, but I would offer you that you need negotiation skills in no matter what you do. So what is the definition of negotiation? Well, it's a noun, and it's a discussion between people that are trying to reach an agreement. Trying to reach an agreement is important here. So what hinders negotiations between people? Well, first of all, if they don't listen to each other. Have you ever been talking to someone and you just think to yourselves, oh my gosh, I don't think they're listening to me? What they're actually doing is formulating what they want to say to you before they've even heard what you're saying to them. It's a very common practice, and I encourage you all to, next time you're listening, for example, your parents or your teacher, think about it. Think about whether you're already listening to what they're saying, or whether you're already trying to figure out what you're going to say. That hinders the ability to negotiate because it gets in the way of you listening. So it also means that you're making assumptions, because if you're not listening to what the other person is saying, you're assuming that you know what they're talking about, and you're not really taking the time to fully understand it. So chances are that you're going to be making assumptions along the way. It means that we don't understand each other, because if we don't take the opportunity to listen, then we're not going to understand what the other person, where the other person is coming from, because you may have differing points of view. And again, you may be making assumptions. You might get angry or frustrated if you're not the one, if you're the one who's feeling that you're not heard. And you don't feel like, I'm not getting what I want here. Why is that happening? You might have the winner takes all approach, which is, okay, I'm going to win or they're going to win. There's really no room in the middle. That hinders negotiations for sure. And you tend to cover the same ground over and over again because you're just repeating what I'm going to refer to later as your positions. And we'll go into that a little bit more in detail. You don't look at alternatives. You don't see if there's any other options. And you might feel like you're getting ripped off by the other person. So positional bargaining. I told you I was going to talk a little bit about positions. What does that mean really? Well, it implies that each person takes a position, a side, and sticks to it as long as possible. That's a goal, to stick to it and just say, this is what I want, and I'm just going to go down swinging for that position. Neither side listens to what the other person has to say, and there's little or no effort put into understanding the other side. And that's positional bargaining. You see these two characters here, and one is just like, ah, and the other one's, ah, and they're basically not getting anywhere. But there's a better way. And that better way is what's called interest-based negotiation. So rather than negotiating on what your position is, you try to figure out what the person's interests are and then base the negotiation on that. So what exactly is the difference? Well, let me tell you a little bit about what positions are. Positions look like this. I've got my arms folded. I've got that attitude look on my face. I've got my head cocked, like, sure, try to convince me I'm right. That's what that young lady is saying just by her posture. Positions are also about trying to fit square pegs into round holes. It's pretty hard to do because you're trying to force something. Positions are hot. They get people passionate and they get hot about it. They get aggravated. It also creates winners and losers, because if you're going to stick to your position and you're not going to budge and you want to be the winner, that automatically means the other person is going to be the loser. And it's also about drawing lines in the sand where you're on one side and the person's on the other side. So that's what positions are all about. Positions, in a nutshell, are what someone wants. I want you to stop doing this. I want to be able to do this. So it's really about what you want. So think about that in relation to interests. I'm going to talk a little bit about interests. Interests are the things like this root underneath the tree that you really can't see yet. You don't exactly know what the interests are because you haven't delved below the surface of the position. You can think of the position being like the tree and the interests being what's underneath. They usually come from the heart. They're what you care about. It's what matters to you. It's about opening a door. If you think about positions being two people on opposite sides of a closed door, interests really allow you to open that door. And they're also about creating a win-win scenario. So what's in it for you? What's in it for me? What do each of us want? And how do we create that intersection of those two things so we can create a win-win situation? Interests are why somebody wants something. So not what they want, but why they want something. So I'm going to tell you a little story about my mom. About 5 years ago, my mom's in her 90s, and about 5 years ago, she told me that she wanted a phone. She had a flip phone at the time, and she told me that she wanted an iPhone. And my mom, being 95 years old, didn't really know much about technology. She has arthritis, she has a little bit of a tremor. iPhones are about, this big, right? And it would be very hard for her to use. It's probably easy for you all, but it's pretty challenging to teach someone who's 95 something about an iPhone when she's never used anything other than a flip phone with 3 big buttons on it. The first button is my number, the second button is my sister's number, and the third number is her friend's number, right? So that's about the extent she had with using technology beyond that first phone I showed you. So I thought to myself, oh my gosh, I can't get you an iPhone. First of all, it's not gonna help you. What on earth do you need an iPhone for? And then I thought to myself, oh, wait a minute. I teach about positions and interest-based negotiation. So mom wanted an iPhone. I wanted her not to have an iPhone. Those were our positions. But what exactly were her interests? And I thought to myself, well, I think I'm going to ask her. So I said, Mom, why do you want an iPhone? And she said, because people can look things up on them. So it had nothing to do with calling other people. It had to do with broadening her horizon and being able to look things up, because she knew that her caregivers from time to time would ask Siri something or ask Google something, and she wanted to be able to do that because she's always been a very curious person. So in contemplating all of that and in thinking about the limitations of an iPhone and how small it was and her arthritis and how difficult it would be to navigate, guess what I did? I bought her an iPad, because that dealt with my concerns about the smallness of an iPhone and the difficulty she would have in navigating around that. An iPad had a much bigger screen. She could use a stylus, and she could look things up and serve her needs, which were to broaden her world by being able to look things up on Google or ask Siri. So by getting down to that, that underlying reason why she wanted the iPhone, I was able to create a win-win situation. So what was Mom's position? She wanted the iPhone. What was Jeanette's position? She didn't want her to have an iPhone. So we immediately created a clash. And it wasn't until I looked underneath that iceberg, which is what you see here, her positions, and delved into her interests, that I understood a little bit more. And my interest was that I wanted her to be successful, but not frustrated at the same time. So what are tips to engage in interest-based negotiations? So that was an interest-based negotiation with my mom. Well, first of all, you have to turn your ears on, because if you're not listening or asking that other person, why did she want that iPhone, then I haven't learned anything, and I'm not moving down that interest-based negotiation path. I have to ask open-ended questions, and I'll get into that a little bit more. Open-ended questions actually open that door to be able to understand those interests more. I have to put myself in the other person's shoes, right? So what do they feel like? What are they frustrated about? Not just about my frustration, but to listen about what was going on with her as well. And to make sure that you understand the issue and the problems. And what that means, again, is going back to asking questions. I can't tell you how important questions are in negotiations, because until you put everything out on the table and make sure that you understand those things, you may end up really not having enough information to be able to make a good decision in an interest-based negotiation. So I mentioned earlier that I would tell you a little bit about questions, and there are two distinct types of questions. One question is a closed question. So what is a closed question? It requires a yes or no response. Is it raining outside? Is a closed-ended question. It's either answered by yes, it is, or no, it's not. It's usually started by is, are, do, or did. Did you like the movie? Yes or no. It doesn't encourage conversation. Are you going on vacation this summer? Yes or no. So it really doesn't encourage you to interact with the other person. It's a very defined answer that comes along with that. And it usually, because you're not getting enough information on the first question, requires you to ask a follow-up question if you want to know more information. So when you're thinking about asking questions, think about the ones that are closed and very narrow versus the ones that are open. And I like to think of this like an open door or an open window, where you're trying to gather as much information as you possibly can in together, and then work with your negotiation. So open-ended question is more information is required in the response. What's the weather like outside is an open-ended question, right? You could either be, oh, it's raining, oh, it's going to be cold today, but it's going to warm up tomorrow. You can see the difference between the open-ended and closed-ended nature of a question. It's usually started by how, what, why. What did you like best about the movie? Not whether you saw the movie or not, or whether you liked the movie or not, but what did you like best about the movie? That creates a whole, you're not sure exactly what the other person's going to say, and you're not trying to direct them to one type of an answer or another. You're just saying, what did you like best? It's an invitation to share information. How are you spending your summer? An open-ended question. And responses can still be short, but they can also provide you with a lot more depth and detail than in a closed-ended question. So I'm going to do a quick open-ended question exercise, and hopefully one of you will jump in. So give me an alternative to, do you want lasagna for dinner? That's a closed-ended question. Can anybody come up with an open-ended version of a question about dinner? By the way, I have no qualms about asking someone to volunteer.
You could say
maybe
or what do you want for dinner instead of a specific dish.
Right. So what would you, I can't see who's speaking and I apologize. So yes, that would be a great question. What do you want for dinner? So there's options, right? How about, do you want to ride our bikes or walk to the park? I know someone tried to give an answer earlier that didn't. Could that person give me an alternative to, do you want to ride our bikes or walk to the park?
maybe what would you like to do at the park, or what would you like to do during your free time?
True. Another option might be, how do you want to get to the park? Right? We could take a bus, we could take a car, we could walk, we could take our bikes. So how do you want to get there? Are you happy living in the dorm? Anyone?
You could say, how is living in the dorm?
Exactly. Think about those 3 words that usually start open-ended questions. So how do you like living at the dorm? Are you okay with how I mowed the lawn?
I believe you could ask, what are your opinions on the lawn I just mowed?
There you go. What do you think of how I mowed the lawn, right? So very good. Thank you so much for those who volunteered that. So working it out and generating options. If you are doing what's only good for you and what's only good for me, then you're missing a large part of a good negotiation. It's beyond splitting it down the middle. You look for solutions that are good for both sides. And they're based on interests, remember, not the positions. So first you have to ask those great questions to know a little bit more about them. Remember that you're in the boat together. So we talk about this at the Nevada Legislature because folks like Senator Weiner, Assemblywoman Titus, Senator Hammond, we're all trying to do work that's good for the state of Nevada. So we're all in the boat together. And how do we do that most successfully? And I'm going to tell you the little story about the orange. So there was one orange left in the world, one lonely orange. And there were two people, and they both wanted that orange. And so a wise man said, let's just split the orange in half. And that would have been like splitting it down the middle, like I talked about earlier. And they thought, gosh, there must be a better way than this. So they talked to someone who's a negotiator that's schooled and educated in interest-based negotiations. And that person did what? They asked both of those people, so why do you want this orange? And it turned out that one person wanted the orange in order to make juice. And that would require the pulp of the orange. And the other person wanted the orange because they wanted the skin and the zest from the orange in order to put it in a recipe to make an orange flavor in their cupcakes. So as it turns out, you find out that if you took that orange and let the one person squeeze the inside out and the other person use the peel, both of those people could actually get what each of them wanted to the fullest extent. But by only looking at their positions, which was I want the orange or I want the orange, and splitting it in half didn't seem right to them, we actually were able to go way down that path of interest-based negotiations and figure out a solution that worked for both of them. So what that did was figure out that win-win and a double win here in the middle, because both of them could use that orange in that particular way that they wanted. So conflict resolution is about you, about asking open-ended questions. I encourage you this evening when you go home to practice with your family, to think about whether someone's asking you an open-ended or a closed-ended question, and to explore how much more information you can get by asking an open-ended question. So thank you very much. I'm happy to answer any questions that anyone might have.
Thank you for sharing your expertise and insights. We were very happy to have you here today. And once again, thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to itinerary item number 3. For itinerary number 3, I would like to welcome Senator Scott Hammond and Assemblywoman Robin Titus to our training. Thank you for joining us today. We will begin with a question and answer portion. Youth Legislator Dimison, I believe you have a question for Senator Hammond. Please proceed.
Thank you for the recognition, Chair. Hi, Senator. What does the word negotiation mean to you?
Well, thank you very much for the question. I hope you guys can hear me. So negotiation means that there's nothing absolutely permanently in writing. And it just means that we both have a goal, and can we achieve the goal when we talk to each other. And so I try to go into a negotiation without any sort of, hey, I have to have all this, and this is the only way you can get my, my vote. Something like that occurred in the end of last session. There were talk about a mining tax, and they needed a couple of votes from our side of the aisle. And I went into those negotiations with an open mind. I told them what I wanted, what I was trying to achieve. And the question then became, how do I achieve it? And that's what I left open. I was open to a lot of different suggestions, and it took a while, but really negotiation means to me, I have an idea of what I'd like, but I'm open to suggestions on how to get there. And so that both parties can then achieve what they needed. The other side needed a vote on a mining tax, and I needed something in school choice in order for us to get there. And so it was about listening and about trying to figure out how I could get to my goal, but it's still allowing them to get something that they needed out of it. So it's a win-win.
Thank you, Senator Hammond. Vice Chair Greenstein, would you like to request some information from Assemblywoman Titus?
I would. I wanted to know if she could share a personal experience during the past 7 days when you engaged with negotiation skills.
So thank you for the question. I'm driving back from rural Nevada, so there's a lot of wind, and I apologize if my camera's not good. There's a lot of background noise, but I'm happy to. Negotiations are something that I've done in my entire career as a family practice doctor. Taking a patient, having a conversation with a patient on what's best for them, is critical that the patient participates in that. So maybe in the last 7 days, I mostly negotiated with grandkids, not necessarily with legislative employees, but negotiating with folks in general. First, have to find out for me what they're coming around with the problem and it's not involved. Senator Hammond is a good example of the mining negotiation. That's a lot of negotiation. But when somebody comes to me and with an ask of one, first I ask, what's the problem they're trying to solve? And then it's really important that we find out what the common ground is. We may not all agree that the solution is the same on how to get there. We just want to know what we're trying to solve. So as a doctor, I would say patients or ownership of their disease and kind of make sure they were involved with that. I can't really say that generally specific, so not against confidentiality, this kind of thing. But it's key that you involve all participants, and you have to do it as Jeanette said earlier. You have to make sure that you ask the open questions to the doctor. You never ask the closed-ended questions. I didn't want yes or no for a patient, but I asked them how they were feeling. I had to really make sure they could say good or bad. I could say a whole like, how did you do this last week, or were you able to make any progress, or were you able to or are you moving better, those kind of things. And so keeping that questions open versus that yes or no is really important.
Thank you, Assemblywoman Titus. Youth Legislator Lyle, I believe you have a question for Senator Hammond.
I do. Hi, Senator. So how important is listening in a negotiation, especially when you have a law at stake?
All right, Youth Legislator Lyle, thank you very much for the question. So I'm going to go back to the example that happened last session, and I think it's that the stories are actually better to learn because for some reason you get those in your mind, you never forget them. It was at the end of the session. The mining tax had come up. They were looking for at least 2 votes from our side of the aisle, not only in the Assembly but in the Senate. And I didn't have necessarily an appetite to raise taxes. I don't love to do that. Sometimes it becomes burdensome on whatever industry or industries in general. So it wasn't as if I needed to vote for this. However, I also understood that there were a lot of people who were going to be impacted. So this became, as you put it, there's high stakes. This is really high stakes. And so when I was given the okay by my colleagues to enter these negotiations, I was told to try to get what I can out of the negotiations. I offered up an idea, and when I was talking to the governor's office came back and said, "We love your idea. Here's the problem. If we go ahead with your idea and we put this into the negotiations, if we put this in, then we get your vote, but then we lose 2 votes from the other side. Some of the far further left candidates, where Assembly people will vote no. So we get 1 and we lose 2. I was tempted at this point to say, that's a problem for you, not a problem for me. right? Play hardball and say, that's it. Well, this is it. Take it or leave it. But instead, I thought, and I've been thinking about this for weeks because I knew it was going to come down to me or somebody like me trying to put together a package that was palatable for everybody, right? And so I thought, all right, I swallowed that temptation to say, hey, that's a you problem, not a me problem. And I just said, all right, I'll tell you what, put two people in a room. And I suggested the two people. I said, you put the treasurer in the room together with this guy who knows education policy. Let them iron out a few of the wrinkles, and we'll figure out a way to do the same thing without putting it in a package that they object to. And about 3 hours later, they came back 2 or 3 hours later, and they said, here's what our idea is. What do you think? And I looked through it and I said, well, it's got all the components that I wanted. The program works, and we're going to house it in the treasurer's department. And I said, I liked that. And then I made a few minor changes, and I said, this is the stuff I can live with. And then it became, how much money do you need for the program? And we had to negotiate that as well. The point I'm trying to make is, if I had stopped listening to what they needed, that they needed to keep the votes that they had and add more votes, then I probably would have just walked away from the negotiations. I still got what I needed. I still got something for the program that I really wanted, was to help kids with learning disabilities and to give them more resources. And in the end, we got that. And so when we opened up that program, we did it at the Blind Center of Nevada down here in Las Vegas. And a lot of parents and children who had learning disabilities were there to see the opening of this program. It made the negotiations all worth it. But it's because I didn't dig in and I tried to figure out exactly what both sides needed to have, that we were able to have the resolution of this problem solved. And that to me is negotiation, because both sides ended up getting what we needed, but we didn't have to compromise to the point where we felt like we were giving it all away. When we both sides actually benefited from this. It was tough because it was high stakes. The two major industries in the state of Nevada were on pins and needles to find out how we were going to resolve this. And so when it was resolved, it was a big deal. The funny thing is, in the end, I had legislators even today who will say, hey, I was there when this program got passed. And you have to laugh because they voted no on that tax, which is, I understand a lot of them had to vote no. But in order to actually say that you had a part in this, you probably should have voted yes for it. But I don't care, because the other axiom I like to tell people is, if you don't worry about who gets credit for something, it's amazing what you can accomplish. And so when somebody wants to take credit for this program, I let them. Matter of fact, I tell everybody what a wonderful asset this person was, because that's important. If we're going to be statespeople and we're going to worry about the problems of the state, then that's the attitude that you have to take into negotiations. You're doing things for other people, not yourself.
Thank you, Senator Hammond. Youth Legislator Rogers, I believe you have questions for Assemblywoman Titus. Please proceed.
Hi, yes, my question to Assemblywoman Robinelle Titus was that, what are some of the benefits of successful negotiations? What are some of the benefits of unsuccessful negotiations?
Thank you. I was looking also on a bill that it took me 4 sessions almost to get past, like 3 sessions for access to care, physician assistance. I couldn't get that bill passed, but I wanted to have physicians be able to sign as a doctor and go in to the legislature building, and then I have to come back at night back to my practice. And my PA said to me, gosh, I can't even sign this handicap plaque. I can't even sign a sports physical. I need you to sign these off. I thought, well, that's still foolish. So I tried for 2 or 3 sessions to try to get a bill passed to let the CAs do what they needed to do. Couldn't get it done because there was a certain legislator who was not supportive of PAs. Finally, that 3rd time around, I actually got her to be a co-sponsor on that bill with me. Once I met with her and found out what her position was and why she was against that, actually, the bill why anybody would be opposed to it, and actually negotiate with her what those limits were and get her on board. And then we got that bill passed. But we don't do the negotiation first, understanding what the opposition was. So that was a prompt negotiation that got things done. I don't know if I have a good experience for you about a negotiation that didn't work out. You know, that your second question to me. I think Senator Hammond really using that the mining tax as an example, it probably was the biggest negotiation that we held this last session. And it took a lot of hours, myself, as minority leader, and Senator Settlemyre, and other members of both parties in a room with the governor and folks sitting down. And I feel we didn't necessarily get all we would have wanted, but like as Senator Hammond said at the end of the day, with a lot of negotiations, sometimes you have to give up. So I would say for me, that wasn't a great outcome. However, it was an issue that Senator.
Thank you, Assemblywoman Titus. I have a question for both legislators joining us today. Please share something interesting about yourself and or an important life lesson that you would like youth legislators to remember. And this is a question for both of you.
So I will defer and allow Assemblywoman Titus to go first if she would like to, or if she would like me to go first, I'll go.
Well, I'll go first because I think I'm gonna lose my cell service here. I'm just north of Totopol, and I'm really worried I'm gonna go out. So thank you, Senator Hammond. If you want to know something interesting about myself, I've been to top of Kilimanjaro. I've been to base camp of Mount Everest. I'm an avid mountain climber to the Mountain Peak, marathon runner, 10 marathons, still run every day, even though I haven't hit the pretty angry about that. But I'm pretty passionate about Nevada, and I like to explore it.
All right, I guess I need to pick up from there, I suppose. Thank you, Assemblywoman. It's hard to beat, hiking up, Kilimanjaro. So I don't know if I can beat that. So I'll try to tie both of them together. I mean, there's a lot of things that I've done in my life, and I think they're really interesting things. But of course, you all will pass through those things. You'll all have interesting things in your life that hopefully what you do is you allow that to be a way to define, well, to change your character, right? That's we have experiences, and those experiences change us and they make us who we are. So I can, I'm older than you guys by a whole lot of years. And so I can say, hey, this is really what has made me who I am today. And those things are going to happen to you. But I'll tell you, one of the experiences, I mean, I could tell you two of the experiences, but the two major ones. One involved my wife. We had been married for almost a year. When she was pregnant, she lost the child after 4 months. That was devastating. And we had a family doctor who took care of her after that. And there's procedures that you have to go through after you lose a child, after you lose a baby in the womb. And I'll never forget that not even a year later, we had Christmas, and we got a Christmas card from that doctor. And in the Christmas card, it had a little note that said, services paid in full. Here was a man who knew that it was hard on a young married couple to have gone through an experience. And he basically said, I don't want you guys to have to think about this anymore. So whatever you owe me, you don't owe me anymore. Move on, do your best. That was really important to my wife and I when we were kids. So that's one experience. And the other one was when we first adopted our son. We actually, we had the birth mother in the same room with us, and the birth aunt was holding the baby on a couch, and the birth mother was talking to us in Spanish, asking us all kinds of questions, and really trying to get to know my wife because she really wanted to know what kind of mother she was going to be handing her baby to. And so she asked her a lot of questions. And the one thing that she asked us, she said, in in his life, could you make sure that he learns Spanish? She was of Mexican heritage. And so she said, can you make sure that he learns Spanish? And we said, yes. And while she was asking a lot of questions of my wife, not necessarily ignoring me, she was more interested in what kind of a woman was going to be raising her child. My thoughts were, here's a woman who trusts us enough to give us life and to make sure that that life is taken care of, right? All the needs are taken care of. And then at the very end, my wife said to me, she said, I want to make sure there is something that happens during this meeting that I know for a fact that this woman is not being pushed into giving her baby up for adoption, but that she's willingly doing this. And it happened right at the end, where the birth mother looked at her sister, the birth aunt, and then in Spanish said to her, dáselo a ella, which means give him to her. And so she physically stood up, walked over to my wife, and handed the baby to my wife, and then left. And then the birth mother came over, bent over, gave a kiss to the baby, and then gave a kiss to my wife, and then departed. And so to me, that was a really significant moment in my life that said, there are people who trust you with important things, that they entrust in you, not only a vote, but also they want to make sure that you care about their lives. So even if you don't agree with their stance, you better understand where they're coming from and what their needs are. And so I try my best to do that. I may not always vote the way people want me to. That's just the nature. You're never going to make everybody happy. But it's important that you be the kind of person that tries to understand who they are.
Thank you, Senator Hammond and Assemblywoman Titus. We appreciate you sharing your time and insights with us regarding effective negotiation skills. Just again, thank you so much. We're very happy to have you, very excited. Next is itinerary item 4. We now have the opportunity to learn about effective negotiation skills from former youth legislator Christina Cabrera and former youth legislator and chair Grant Gabriel. Thank you both for contributing to this meeting. Please take a moment to introduce yourselves and give an update regarding your life since completing the NYL program. We'll start with Miss Christina Cabrera. And if I mispronounced that, let me know. I apologize in advance if I did mispronounce.
Yeah, no problem. It's a tricky name, Christiana, but I go by Christy most often. Thank you so much for having me. I was in the Nevada Youth Legislature a really long time ago. I think I joined in 2012 maybe, and was in it for 3 years. That was before we had the term limit, so I was able to do a half term my senior year, which was exciting. Since the NYL, I went to college. I went to the University of Nevada, Reno. I double majored, or I guess dual degreed, in environmental science and political science with a minor in renewable energy. And right after college, literally before I had even walked across the stage, I got a job with the Nevada Conservation League, where I am still at today. So back then I was running their campaign. Now I'm their policy and advocacy director. I've been in this role for about 2.5 years. It's really my dream job. It kind of put all of my majors and degrees into one job, where I get to advocate for climate issues, public lands, all kinds of stuff. So a big part of my job is being our lobbyist. So I am very active in the legislature as well as in the interim. And then when we're not in legislative session, we do a lot of work at the county level or with the administration. So keeping busy kind of all the time. But I definitely think the skills I learned at the youth legislature got me a lot of my jobs that got me to where I am today. I was trusted a lot more because I had these experiences and had already had the background information to do jobs well and work at the legislature. So I'm really excited to be here, really excited to see where all of you go next. I think there will be a lot of successful people on this call. So I'll pass things over to Grant to introduce himself, who was a youth legislator with me. So this is a little fun reunion.
Thank you, Christy, if I may, Chair Moss. Yes, it's great to be back. I'm absolutely flattered to be invited back, especially on a training with such distinguished panel members, including, of course, my friend and colleague, Christy. It's really, really wonderful to see you all again. When I served on the youth legislature, I served out of Northern Nevada. but times have brought me back down to Las Vegas for a year, clerking for a federal judge on the Ninth Circuit. So it's nice to sort of get to see the other side of our beautiful state, even though deep down I think I still prefer the North. Personally, but it has given me an opportunity to do things like have a picnic with Senator Wiener this past weekend, which I'll touch on maybe a little bit later when I try and give you guys some advice. But before relocating back down to Las Vegas here, I went to college after the youth legislature. I went to Yale for undergrad, where I majored in classics, which meant that if I wanted to be employed, I had to do something else but before getting a real job. So I went to law school also at Yale. Before I went to law school, in between undergrad and law school, I worked for a mediator who mediated pretty high profile civil cases. And this meant that I got to see the real practice of negotiation up front, and also got to see where the skills that we learned as youth legislators could really be brought to bear in our future careers, even if that might be outside the legislative process. But fortunately, I've been brought back down to Las Vegas and away from the East Coast for a little while. While next year I plan on working in a law firm in Los Angeles, I'm also planning on taking the Nevada bar as well this summer, and hopefully I'll be able to return to our state sooner rather than later again. But looking forward to chatting with you all today.
Thank you, Ms. Cabrera, and thank you, Mr. Gabriel. We'll move on to our question and answer portion. Youth Legislator Seddon, I believe you have a question for Ms. Cabrera. Please proceed.
Thank you, Chair Moss. My question is, what does the word negotiation mean to you?
So as I mentioned, a lot of the work I do is policy related. So when I think of negotiation, it's normally about a policy and getting into the nitty gritty. Ultimately, I think negotiation is about communicating, working with other parties, working with other stakeholders, having an open channel of communication, and really understanding what people want, what outcome they want, and ultimately, hopefully, getting an outcome that we can all agree on, and really getting that compromise.
Thank you, Ms. Cabrera. Youth Legislator Thurgood, would you like to request some information from Mr. Gabriel? Oh, that's right. She had to leave early, so I will take her question. So my question to you, Mr. Gabriel, is please share a personal experience during the past 7 days when you engaged in negotiation skills.
Thank you. So the experience I want to share actually comes from lunch yesterday. As I mentioned, I work for a federal judge who's generally a pretty serious guy, but he takes the time out of his day to have lunch with us every single day. About midway through lunch yesterday, we were chatting about root beer floats and mentioned that we all really had a hankering for root beer floats. Now, Judge Bybee has a collection of root beer that he keeps in the refrigerator every day. And occasionally we'll break some out, but we didn't have any ice cream. So I proposed something that, when your federal judge likes to work and make sure that you're rewarding the federal government for the time it spends on you and the money it spends on you. I propose that I run down to the store and grab some ice cream, and that we have sort of a root beer float happy hour midway through the day. Now, as Christy suggested, this is something that everybody at the table could agree upon. We all wanted the same goal. I was sort of beginning a negotiation with my judge for the root beer floats, but he had some other priorities as well. Namely, he wants us to actually work and make sure that we, do right by the federal government and our responsibilities as judicial law clerks. So I recognize that we shared one common goal, but we're, maybe on opposite sides about wanting to continue working the rest of the day. But what I proposed is, because we were halfway through lunch, to sort of meet him in the middle. My co-clerk Adam and I run during our lunch break, so that most of the time we spent grabbing the ice cream would not be on the federal dime, and reconvene as quickly as possible so that we could still have the root beer float. So I proposed basically that we all agree on the one ultimate goal, but we meet sort of in the middle and devote the manner of getting the root beer floats to a time where we wouldn't necessarily be wasting taxpayer money. the judge was able to agree to this, and all parties were better off. And perhaps most importantly, everyone was left feeling good about negotiation that we just sort of undergone. Judge was happy because we got root beer floats, but still got a full day, worth of work in. And we as clerks were happy because we got to kill a little bit of time and sample some of his, pretty remarkable, unique root beers that he keeps on hand with our root beer floats that day. And that brings me to sort of one piece of advice that I was trying to channel in that negotiation that I learned from Justice Breyer, who came to talk to one of my classes. And you might know Justice Breyer because he's been in the news recently because his successor, Ketanji Brown Jackson, is up for appointment to the Supreme Court. But prior to being on the Supreme Court, Justice Breyer was special counsel to the Judiciary Committee under Senator Ted Kennedy, who's been known as one of the great negotiators in legislative history, whether it was civil rights bills or prescription drug benefit bills. He was able to work sort of across the aisle to get some major legislation passed. And what Justice Breyer shared with us was that Ted Kennedy's approach to negotiations, and we've sort of seen this channeled throughout the day, was recognize that what you need to do is not sort of split the baby. A lot of people go into negotiations thinking, I'm going to have to meet someone sort of in the middle. Neither side really gets what they want. We settle and sort of compromise at 50-50. And he said, if you go in with that sort of an approach, every side is going to be disappointed at the end of the day. Instead, what Justice Breyer said and what Senator Kennedy would do was sit down, listen to what the other side is saying, listen to their goals. In this case, my judge saying that he really wanted a root beer float, and listen to all the proposals that they might have, and listen for those ones that you agree with, that you think, both of us are on the same side and we can start, a foundation to build upon. Identify those, praise the other side for suggesting such a brilliant idea, give them credit for suggesting that brilliant idea, and then build upon that brilliant idea in the way that best suits you. And then at the end, once you pass the brilliant idea, give them all the credit, because you aren't really there for the credit. You're there to get your goals accomplished. And what this does is leave both sides much more willing to negotiate in the future. It sets up a much more positive relationship, and maybe you and your judge can get root beer floats another day as well.
Thank you, Mr. Gabriel. Youth Legislator Wong, I believe you have a question for Ms. Cabrera.
Yes, thank you so much for meeting with us today. My question is, how important is listening in a negotiation, especially when you have a lot at stake?
I mean, listening is crucial. You can't have a successful negotiation without it. And I think Jeanette really touched on that and did a great job explaining it. Listening is when you're going to figure out what their perspectives are, what their priorities are, and you're hoping that they're listening to you too. It's a two-way street. As I said, negotiation for me is all about communication, and half of communication is listening. You can't just talk and have all the answers. So really, listening is key and is the only way that you're going to get a desired outcome.
Thank you, Ms. Cabrera. Youth Legislator Bentham, I believe you have a question for Mr. Gabriel. Please proceed.
Thank you, Chair Moss. As for the question, what are some of the benefits for successful negotiations, and what are some of the benefits of unsuccessful negotiations?
Thank you. Well, first, I think the benefits for the successful negotiations are fairly clear. I mean, one, both sides get the goals that they really want to see accomplished, and that should be a positive for both parties to any negotiation. But the other sort of primary objective that you should always have, and the main benefit, is setting up a good relationship for future negotiations. Because in life generally, you won't just negotiate with someone one time, particularly when you're doing legislative work, as you all will be doing here, and hopefully in your careers as well. You want to make sure that you're laying the groundwork, that the other side will trust you, believe that you have good motivations going forward, and be willing to work with you again. Which brings me to the potential benefits from what we might call a failed negotiation. And when I worked for the mediator who I did, he dealt with some very high profile, high value cases. And when you're litigating a case and trying to settle a case that's worth tens of millions of dollars, sometimes people aren't going to see eye to eye, especially in the first attempt. So even if a negotiation fails in the first instance, you can always set it up so that, in the next instance, you demonstrate that you both respect each other, you both, are serious negotiators. And perhaps at a later day, when the case or the issue has progressed a little further, you can have another negotiation and come to an agreement then. And you can also learn about what the other side wants, and then you can adjust, what you demand and what you're trying to accomplish accordingly. So even if it fails in the short term, you can set it up so that you can have long-term success.
Thank you, Mr. Gabriel. Youth Legislator Thornton, would you like to request some information from both of the NYL alumni mentor trainers joining us today?
Yes, I would. So I'll direct this question to Ms. Cabrera first. Could you please share something interesting about yourself and or an important life lesson that you would like all of us youth legislators here to remember?
So I'll start with something I think is pretty interesting. Like I said, I went to the University of Nevada. We have a really great study abroad program here. And so I was actually able to spend an entire summer in Havana, Cuba, which is a place a lot of people don't get to go and a lot of people don't get to live, that's for sure. My dad was actually born there, so I was able to see my family's house. I took some policy and political classes from professors in Cuba and was able to learn a lot and really broaden my horizons, which I think is really cool. And if anyone has an opportunity to study abroad, you should absolutely do it. Which brings me to my life lesson, which I think is really just be curious and try new things. When I was going to college, I was totally under the mindset I was going to be a political journalist or a press secretary or something like that. I took an environmental science class on a whim and fell in love with it. And this is my career and my passion and my favorite thing to talk about and do. So just be curious, try new things. Don't be afraid to fail. Don't be afraid to try things out.
Thank you so much for that. Mr. Gabriel, could you please answer that same question about something interesting or some life lesson that you would like us to remember?
Well, thank you. Generally, when I give my fun fact, it's that when I was in high school, I authored and passed a piece of legislation. But perhaps with this crowd, that seems a little bit less exciting because you're all going to potentially have that opportunity as well. But that does bring me to my bit of life advice, which is sort of twofold. One, you have an incredible opportunity in front of you in the youth legislature. Make the most of it. You have an incredible responsibility, and it will be a highlight, I think, of your entire life. So, when you're in the program, please enjoy it, savor it, and do your best to sort of serve the students of Nevada. But even more importantly, perhaps make the most of the relationships that you can develop out of this program. If I could give you any life advice, that would be it. As I mentioned, Senator Wiener and I had a picnic this last weekend, and it was really wonderful. She continues to mentor me even after I've left the program. Get to know people like Miss Ashdown, who are absolutely incredible and keep the program running day in and day out, and get to know each other because you are absolutely remarkable people. I think getting to see Christy today has been really wonderful, and sort of hearing what all your colleagues are doing with their lives come a few years down the road is going to be really impressive to you like it is to me. So just make the most of being a youth legislator. I wish I could go back, but I'm glad I have the experience and can use it going forward.
Thank you, Ms. Cabrera and Mr. Gabriel. We appreciate you sharing your time and insights regarding negotiations. We're super thankful that you guys are here, and it's amazing to see you and hear your stories about the NYL too. We will move to itinerary item 5A, role playing. In your meeting packet, you will find a document titled Practice and Review Role Playing. Please refer to it now. 6 of our colleagues received the roles in advance and will now act out the scenarios. If you received an email about playing a role in this training, please be ready to act out your scenario when called. Please keep in mind that you will have to unmute yourself when you are playing your roles. We will start with Youth Legislator Bhatnagar and as the Youth Legislator, and Youth Legislator Boulware as the persistent student. Please begin your role-playing scenario.
Is Youth Legislator Bhatnagar still online with us? I think she was having issues with her internet. So you may have to play her role, Chair Moss. Isn't that exciting?
Fun. Let me see if I can find some of the materials.
It should be
Okay.
in your packet.
Yes, I have it in front of me. So I will do my best, Youth Legislator Boulware. We will see what comes out of this. It'll be interesting and entertaining to say the least. So if you'd like to begin, we can begin. Youth Legislator Boulware.
Do I begin or do you begin?
So would you like me to read the scenario out loud?
Sure.
So scenario 1 is a youth legislator just concluded a meeting with students about their proposed bill. Most of the students support the idea of dealing with cyberbullying. After the meeting, one of the students who wants the bill proposal to address animal welfare starts a conversation with the youth legislator. So,
okay.
Yes.
Youth Legislator Moss, I really enjoyed you and appreciated you talking to all of us youth and your concern towards what we think are prevalent issues right now. I know that everyone right here today thought that cyberbullying was the most prevalent issue, but I really think the bill proposal should address animal welfare instead.
Why do you think that?
Well, I think cyberbullying only affects a handful of people, whereas animal welfare is important to a vast amount of people, as many people own pets themselves. So I think it's more of a wide issue amongst youth.
I see. And I see where you're coming from. Absolutely. How has this personally affected you?
I have a pet myself, and so to me, I connect more with protecting pets and making sure they're well fed and taken care of and protected, just as we hope that humans have rights. I would like to advocate for the rights of pets. Cyberbullying doesn't directly affect me, and nobody I know is affected directly by cyberbullying. So I think it's more important for us to, for this bill to address animal welfare as opposed to cyberbullying.
I understand. And do you have any ideas that you would want me to take away to help address the issue that you pose?
Not specifically, but I do think we should work together to communicate with more youth and see their ideas on problems that they see with pets around them, and get their ideas on what we can do about that.
Absolutely. I would love to work with you in the future to help solve this issue that you've brought to my attention. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good job, Youth Legislator Boulware. It was an experience for us both, learning experience. So thank you to Youth Legislator Boulware. Next is Youth Legislator Craver as the Youth Legislator and Youth Legislator Kington as the unsettled student. Please begin your role-playing scenario.
Would you mind if I went first?
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so part of the reason I came to you was I know that that you're doing very well in school, and that and frankly you're a leader. Now, honestly, I'm getting really tired of having to go to school every single day, and I'm thinking about dropping out. Now, one of the reasons for that is I honestly feel that I could do better, or I could make more money outside of school if I dropped out.
Well, I'm really glad you decided to come to me with the issue and talk about it before you made such an important decision for your life. I think that the benefits to staying in school greatly outweigh the potential future. Sorry, I just got a message. I feel like, sorry, I totally forgot what I was saying. I feel like the immediate benefits to dropping out just aren't as great as the benefits to staying in and graduating, because graduating offers just so many more potential career options. A lot of places don't take you if you don't even consider you if you don't have a high school diploma. So I feel like for the betterness of you, you should stay in. And we can find ways to work with you and help you with everything that you would need. And we can find programs to help if you need that and if you need that support.
Honestly feel that even if I did end up graduating, that my grades are so bad that it really wouldn't make any difference as per higher ability.
Well, I feel like I said, we can find programs and other opportunities for you to improve that. I can even help you if you would like, if you need. I'm always available to you. And we can find other people if I don't work. We have options.
Now, for curiosity's sake, you said that there were benefits for graduating. What are some of those benefits?
Some of those benefits include, like I said, a lot of job opportunities don't even consider people if they don't have a high school diploma. And if you don't get a lot of those opportunities, you don't get a lot of those opportunities to make more money than you would without one. So your argument for dropping out is I want to make money now. But if you wait, 1 or 2 years, then you have the potential to make even more in the future.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, youth legislators, for a great performance in that scenario. Next is Youth Legislator Makababed as the Youth Legislator and Youth Legislator Miller as the Activity Advisor. Please begin your role-playing scenario.
Chair Moss, before we begin, can I make sure that you can hear me correctly? I've been having some internet issues.
Yes, we can hear you very clear.
Thank you.
And can you hear me as well?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. It's a bit laggy on my end. Legislator, could I start if that's okay with you?
Yes, of course.
Okay. Hello, I would like to ask for your permission to be excused from your 8th period math class next Tuesday. I'm the Nevada Youth Legislator of District 11, and I need to attend a Nevada Youth Legislator training event, but it conflicts with 8th period next week because the meeting starts at 2 p.m. Can you please give me the work I have to make up in advance?
Yes, I can give you the work. Are you sure that you'll be able to catch up, or do you need additional help in preparing for the class that you'll miss?
Okay, I think I'll need a little bit of additional help, but to ensure that I could kind of schedule an appointment with you, if that's okay, or meet you in a Google Meet or something. But I will make sure to do the assignments you give me in advance or over the weekend. And I'll make sure to email the registration office for an excused absence for this event. Thank you.
That would be great. Thank you so much.
Thank you, youth legislators. I would like to turn the meeting over to Senator Weiner for the rest of itinerary item 5A and an itinerary item 5B, the parent activity.
Prior to going in, because number 5 is, of course, 2 parts. So let me begin with some evaluation. in the role playing that we just heard. Just some thoughts as I listened. In starting a conversation, there is great value in any opportunity to acknowledge the other person. So acknowledging them encourages people to engage in the conversation. So maybe saying, you've been working on this particular issue, and I appreciate that, and I wanted to bring your attention to this other issue. So you're not jumping right into what you want changed or want different, but acknowledging the work that's been done. Again, creating a common area where the conversation can be very collegial. The why question, why, and I heard this a couple times. You listened to Jeanette's wisdom about the open-ended, and so this also engages and shows an interest to learn more than a yes or no response would generate, and that you're investing in the conversation. In using examples about something, how it personally affects you, this does create your own humanity around the issue. The key is to make sure it's relevant to what it is you're talking about. And it also creates a personal connection to the issue. So you could be very intellectual and very proprietary about all the right reasons, but when you can share a personal impact of that issue in your life or the lives of people you know or you represent, that adds the human component that creates a connection between the information and the people who are affected by it. Do you have any ideas? Rather, that's closed. The question was, do you have any ideas? So reframing that, what ideas would you like to share with me or offer to me? Or what ideas would you suggest for us to consider in processing this? Be careful. You might not remember, but when I taught message accountability forever ago, one of the suggestions I made at that time was about the care you want to engage in your conversations to avoid what we call absolute language. And one of the words is absolutely. These become easy, lazy fallbacks, but absolutely, never, always, forever. The words that have no wiggle room, be careful about using those. So it can be a fallback response. Just be careful because you're closed in when you use an absolute response. So into scenario 2, when we say, I'm really glad to see that you came to see me, maybe instead of that, maybe rather than I'm really glad, just this is really subjective. Thank you for coming to see me and to share this with me. There's something about gratitude coming early in a conversation where people feel appreciated, and thank you puts them first. Even though I is understood, thank you for having trust or faith or your willingness to share this with me. Lets them know that what they have has value and that you value them and are grateful for the opportunity. Again, back to those, what I called the vocal disclaimers I just referenced earlier. I think, remember, take a pause and make a statement. So if you can't make a statement that you are solid around, a statement of fact, there are softeners, and you'll find this again back in the handbook on media relations and such softeners that you can't make a hard stand statement. You can soften what you're saying with words like possibly, probably, maybe, most often, sometimes. You can soften it with a qualifier that gives you some wiggle room in what you're saying. It's great also whenever you can deliver on this, when you can deliver, be careful about what you offer in delivering, in offering assistance on whatever it is you're talking about. You need to be authentic about your offer. When we offer assistance, we need to be able to deliver it, because merely offering it and not following through can destroy not just that communication and the follow-up, but anything subsequent because we've breached the trust. So just be careful about what you offer, such as I'm always available. It's easy to say that, except it's not always doable. And we need to be careful because there'll be somebody who's going to take you up on that always, and you may not be able to deliver in that time frame of always. Again, great saying, what are some of the benefits? Open-ended. What are some of the benefits? And have that conversation around something that's probably meaningful to the person who's going to respond. And you can get some idea about how to work with what they're talking to you about because they're sharing examples or benefits, or what are the top 3 things that are important to you. Somehow to get them to get more specific, you're going to get a wonderful framework work for what it is you're talking about. Again, in requesting, it's great in any conversation. I find this very helpful, and I find this most helpful when we reiterate at the end of a conversation what, especially for we have more to do beyond it. I will regularly say, see, I said regularly and not always, because sometimes I don't remember to do it. If there's work to be done, Tina and I do this all the time. I will say to Tina, okay, so what my responsibility is to do blah, 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 and then you will be working on blah, 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 blah. So I can expect from you blah, 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 and you can expect from me A, B, C, D, E. And it may be, oh, and also Tina might say, oh, and also Senator, remember you were going to do this. I say, oh, Tina, also, could you do this? So we know before we conclude our conversation what we expect from each other and how we can count on each other. It also, not just what I can count on from Tina, what she can count on from me. We know collaboratively what to expect going forward before the next time we connect. And it's where this shows up and pays big dividends is when something appears in that, say, oh, I forgot I was supposed to do that. Let me write that down. Or is that how you wanted it? Or is this the date I need to have? We also add dates. Wow, thanks for sharing that with me, because I thought it was so many revelations, don't they, Tina, show up before we conclude our calls and say, wow, thank you for reminding me about that. Well, what happens when we don't have that at the end is if we don't talk through our expectations for each other, then I might have an expectation of Tina and she's not delivering to me. So I'm going to be frustrated. And without talking about it, she might not even have realized that I was expecting it. Does that make sense? So we know what our contributions to the process are and how we can deliver our highest and best selves at the end when we determine what each one is responsible to deliver before our next conversation. This is huge in negotiation, by the way. Not to presume, not to leave things out. Everybody leaves that conversation knowing what your homework is, your assignment is before you come back together. And when you know that, then in between, you know how you can reach out and get more information or more assistance. I mean, Tina, haven't we had many times say, ooh, yikes, thank you for reminding me. And we could have gone our separate ways. And both of us missed it because we didn't put it together at the very end as to what we expected from each other. So anyway, that's for that. And so in your paired activity, we're doing something a little different this time. Historically, we have not, we've been doing paired activities in between. And what we're going to have you do, you've got assignments, pairs, like we've had in the past. And again, have, the A person has 5, thank you, it's in your packet, has 5 days, we're saying 5, you can pick the number, to contact B to schedule a communication. Our preference is that it be one where you in real time, minimally a phone conversation, but FaceTime or Zoom. We don't want it to be where you have lag time. You really want to have the exchange. There's something very valuable about having real-time exchange. If A doesn't call, then it's B's turn to reach out to A. What we're doing is we are asking you to take the same scenarios that we've just worked through, and with your partner, you're going to pick the parts, it's the instructions are here. You're going to do the same scenarios, or pick 2 of 3, however you choose to do it, because we don't score you on it. We don't grade you. We don't hold you accountable. This is being willing to maximize your experience and learning opportunities in this program. We want, based on what you heard and based on what we've shared in some of the commentary, how can you grow your experience in these scenarios to be even bigger and more meaningful for you? If you were one of the 6 people who participated, this gives you a second shot at up-leveling your communication. Most people don't get 2 opportunities. So whether you're doing it for the first time and based on what you've learned or you've already done, then let's say if you were the student in one of these, then become the youth legislator, switch roles so that you're doing the other person's part. And we will discuss this as part of the paired activity. We will debrief on this during our optional but highly recommended May virtual conference call, kind of year-end wrap up and review of the year. So that is where we will go with that. Tina, you want to give preview of upcoming?
Oh, Chair Moss will handle that. Right now, I just wanted to make sure everybody realized that there's a new list of phone numbers.
Yes.
Updated
with first
in your meeting packet. So that's where you'll get the phone number of the person that you are paired with.
And also, doesn't it also have? Yeah, yes, it has phone number, but also has the email
Yes.
to set up the time. Yes. And we have 2 new members, very exciting to do the pairing there too. So is the chair going to go through upcomings, Tina?
Yes.
Or you?
The chair.
Okay. Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Weiner. Itinerary 6 is a preview of upcoming activities and trainings. I would like to remind everyone that our town hall meeting report is due Saturday, April 9th. Tina emailed a copy of the report document to us on March 30th, 2022, and I think she just mailed another one today. Please email your reports to Senator Weiner, Tina Ashdown, and your legislators by this Saturday, April 9th. On Wednesday, May 11th, everyone is encouraged to attend a virtual meeting to reflect on the first year of our 2-year term. The NYL annual report to the governor is due Tuesday, May 31st, 2022. I am eager to incorporate the suggestions shared today during the NYL's meeting in the report. Our next required training will be held in Carson City on August 3rd and 4th, 2022. The training involves legislative skills development, including drafting a bill to help us maximize our experience leading up to the 2023 legislative session. I am excited to see you all there, to see your entire person and not just on a video screen. Sorry, I'm diverting a little bit from the script, but you have no idea how excited I am to see you all in person. I'm so excited, so excited. Through the rooftops, through the rooftops. So we'll move on to itinerary item 7, youth legislators' comments, questions, and or discussion. I will turn this portion of our training over to Senator Weiner.
Thank you again, Mr. Chair. And this portion, again, is new with your cohort. And what we realized was that there's great value, one, in reviewing what we've done today or anything up to this point. Now that you have the paired activity in between meetings and trainings, we can discuss about how that showed up for you, and also anything else you'd like to talk about. And so let's first start with the paired activity that you had, that we gave to you, assigned to you, encourage you to do again, this is your opportunity to grow. We are not monitoring. What I found is that those who participate often do for an hour, that they grow so much through this opportunity to have a conversation around subject matter and then wherever else it goes and grow together. And so we find this is very resourceful. It's a wonderful opportunity to build relationships. So does anybody want to talk about the paired activity, again, that related to town hall meetings? Anybody want to share highlights about what this experience was for you?
Youth
And
legislator.
likely it would have been before you had your town hall meeting. So we're going to then go into those of you who've had your town hall meeting. So what was the paired activity like? How did it lend to the real world activity of town hall meeting that you all have, most of you have done already?
Youth legislator Krieger, I saw your hand. You are recognized.
Thank you. Sorry. I wanted to say that I really did enjoy this paired activity. Both Youth Legislator Makabavid and I had bills that had to do with educational reform. So we had a great time brainstorming together, and we actually really enjoyed our conversation, and we've been in touch ever since. So it was such a wonderful opportunity to get to meet and speak with her, and I'm so glad that we've gotten to work together through this program.
Anyone else? Oh, youth legislator Lara, you're recognized.
Yes. So my paired activity, I was paired with youth legislator Miller, and it was very interesting. We both also had similar bills, as in it was directed towards the mental health of the youth. And I believe a lot of our youth legislators actually talked about that in our essays submitted to the NYL program. And it was very interesting because we exchange ideas, and we also realized that I also realized how small Las Vegas is, like how closely, like how unexpected people are. Like I knew who Nicole Miller was because of I played against her school in my basketball team. So it was very funny knowing that I played against her basketball team. And also we had more conversations, not just about the paired activity, but also about other aspects like what she does, like her free time, other programs she's involved in. It was just interesting to get to know my peers.
Are there any more comments, questions, or discussion about paired activities? If not, we'll begin to discuss town halls, right, Senator Weiner?
Yes, and I've heard from a couple of you. However, because we're approaching the deadline, we typically would do this after you've already completed. However, some of you have already had the experience. Does anybody want to share your experience? Maybe even comparing your town hall plan and what really showed up that you're going to report to us in your report. Anybody want to share what this experience was like for you?
Youth Legislator Miller, I see your hand. You are recognized.
Thank you, Chair Moss. So I kind of ran mine in a seminar style, and it was really interesting to see everything that people had to say and all the concerns that people had. And I feel like the biggest issue that came up in my town hall was mental health and school violence. And it was almost interesting to hear how people tied those two issues together and the solutions that people came up with for those issues. And it was really it was amazing to hear people be so, like, prioritize it so much and care so much about what happens to Nevada's youth.
Thank you, Youth Legislator. Youth Legislator Miller. If I may, I also just held my town hall, and I wanted to speak on it a little bit, is that I had about 10 to 12 people there, which was a better showing than I expected originally, you know, and I was able to use that as a public forum to hear from people instead of me blabbering at people. I was able to hear from these people, these students, these adults. I had a whole array of people, a spectrum of people there. And, you know, I learned that there were issues affecting our youth that aren't just education, mental health, although that was the focus of the discussion for a lot of the time. At the beginning, I learned that there are some issues that are affecting the youth, like gerrymandering. There are some issues like election integrity affecting our youth and them getting out there to exercise their right to vote when they get old enough. I learned that these issues are ones that students care about that I didn't know before. So it was truly a great learning opportunity for me to listen to my constituents and hear what they need. So, Youth Legislator Dimison, I see your hand. You are recognized.
So my town hall process, well, it was quite interesting. So originally I'd planned to do it virtually, and I stuck to that. I had emailed every school within my Senate district, and unfortunately none of the principals responded. So when it came to town hall day, Youth Legislator Nicole Miller was actually the only one to show up, and we had a very substantive discussion on mental health and school violence issues. But looking per se to hear more from my constituents, you know, when I went to school the past few days, I had a lot of one-on-one conversations directly with the students within my school. So it wasn't necessarily a town hall per se, it was more you know, one-on-one conversations with my community. I guess you could call that a town hall. And what I had learned is, you know, building off of Chair Moss's point, is that a lot of our youth, especially high school students, are very politically active in the way that they have policy decisions. They have a lot of opinionated decisions on sort of how they want to see our state and nation to be run. I heard a lot of interesting points on universal healthcare within our nation. Healthcare was actually a really big point that a lot of students brought up to me directly. But when it pertained to issues directly relating to their education in school, a lot of them, you know, told me that they felt that school was a stressful environment. It was negatively impacting their mental health. And more interestingly, I spoke to the Black Student Union at my school to directly hear their input on issues pertaining to, you know, how they felt about minority representation within the, District 9. And what I had heard is that a lot of them feel like, you know, there's more that can be done for minorities within our district. And I'm grateful to have this experience because I learned that, you know, I'm not only carrying the torch for the people I represent, but I'm carrying the torch for very specific groups of people who really depend on me.
Thank you, Youth Legislator Dimison. Youth Legislator Lyle, I see your hand. You are recognized.
I actually had a pretty similar experience to everyone else. I did, however, have a fairly nice turnout. I had about 15 people. And I think that was probably just in the way that I held it. Our school has a special time where in the day we have about an hour break. And it is purely for students to come together in clubs and events. So that was pretty cool. I was able to hold it during that time, but like everyone else, I don't know, like going into it, I kind of thought everyone would talk about mental health because I think that is a really important thing and it's really important to me. But then when we actually got to talking, I had everyone write something that was affecting them or an issue they felt really inspired by on a piece of paper. And then I would read them off. And I just had such good discussions. And I mean, I wasn't really even necessarily talking in it. Everyone just sort of started talking to each other. And I now have so many other, like, more knowledge on problems that are affecting the youth in Nevada, not just what I thought was affecting people. So I thought the event went really well, and it's made me so much more knowledgeable on issues that are facing our youth today.
Thank you, Youth Legislator Lyle. Is there anybody, you or Vice Chair Greenstein?
I just wanted to say that, like other people, I was surprised by what was brought up. One thing that actually multiple people cared about, which I didn't know about before, was endangered fish in the Truckee River in northern Nevada. People were very interested in how to protect the fish. So maybe that's something that I can look at exploring and see for the bill draft proposal.
You might want to contact Christiana Cabrera, who works in that area, who you just spent time with, the NYL alumni mentor trainer, because she works on environmental issues and she may have some very good information for you going forward with that.
Thank you, Vice Chair Greenstein. Trying to get in as many vice chairs, calling you vice chairs until May 31st as possible. Youth Legislator Raugust, you are recognized.
Thank you, Chair Dylan Moss. So basically, I had this town hall to plan and I was sort of scrambling to see what I would do. I'd contacted multiple people, I'd planned venues, I had to come up with ideas in mind, I had to invite people. And it was just, honestly, it was a whirlwind, but I enjoyed every moment of it. Ultimately, I ended up having a couple of my family members and a couple of my neighbors who showed up to my town hall. But I felt like I gained so much. I didn't realize how much I would learn from it. I learned, just simply like inviting people, having an event, having my name out there and tying it to what I did was very meaningful. And many times, even if people didn't want to show up to the event, they were, one, honored, and two, they were interested in what I had to offer. They were like, hey, what's the Nevada Youth Legislature? What's your role in it? Like at the end of the day, people were like, why you? Like, what makes you important? And so hearing about like how I could actually influence change and how people realize that, there's someone here who can hear my voice. That was like incredible to me. And it helped me a lot, even if it wasn't 100% successful.
Thank you, Youth Legislator Raugust. Youth Legislator Craver, you are recognized.
So I had a turnout of, I think it was 13 people, and it was all girls, which I thought was like super interesting. But and so I went into it and I had like a little sticky note of topics that I thought would go over, and I had like bullet points under them of like what I would talk about, and a couple of them were mental health, and my school personally is going through a couple issues right now, so I had those in that. And one of the things that was brought up had nothing to do with it. The golf course in our area, it's getting like it's like just not kept up well, and a lot of people were interested in like that part of it, which I thought was really interesting, because it was like, oh, like it's a golf course. I didn't think that youth would be like impacted by it, but it was just really interesting to see like how they were affected by it, because it's like a part of their community that they care about. And I thought that was really interesting. And then just like a bunch of problems, like a bunch of like, not smaller, but like a bunch of problems that you wouldn't initially think about when you think about like issues like that were brought up. And I thought it was just really cool to see.
Thank you.
Thank you, Youth Legislator Craver. Is there any more discussion, questions, comments about town halls?
Mr. Chair, if there aren't other youth legislators, if I may share something that, darn it. Am I back? Yay. I heard a common thread through a lot, voiced differently, however, there was commonality to it. When we have town hall meetings, one, everybody who shared your experience had a wonderful growth opportunity, because It's not something you might have done before. It might not have been comfortable. You had expectations or didn't have expectations. And a lot of new things showed up. And even for when we prepare and know what we might want to talk about, in being open to things that do show up, they might surprise us. That's what it's all about. Being open to the possibility of what might show up and being willing to, again, you heard earlier, we've talked about this all the time, being willing to be an active and engaged listener. In the nonprofit I founded, Public Service NB, when I teach the 10-step group activity all the way from beginning to giving money away, the very first thing, and you've done it with your town hall meeting, this will resonate with you in whatever you do. The first thing you do is you select the community you want to serve. So in your town hall, that is who are the people being included in this? Who is the population I choose to serve? And that is part of how you build the event and how you prepare for it. Here's the big thing. Once we select the community to serve, the next part, and this is the town hall part, or any other conversations, as Chair DeBee Demison said, conversations one-on-one. Have a conversation with them, however that looks, and listen to what they share with you about what their needs are based on their perspective. So often we will take a look at something and say that needs to be fixed. By the way, this is done on a global level. It's not just what we're talking about here. We see something and that needs to be fixed. And how are we determining that? I'm not talking about emergencies. I'm talking about recurring things that we might observe. And so what we do, that needs to be fixed. Based on whose experience do we say that? On ours. Based on whose perspective? On ours. And it doesn't mean it doesn't need to be fixed or addressed. However, when we listen to the public, your constituents, when we listen to them and let them tell us what they want you to work on, then you're hearing it from the people who are directly affected by that issue. Not you joining them and telling them what their greatest need is. Listen to them and let them tell you. And then the conversation continues about how you can work together to address that need. You may not have a way to address the whole thing. It may be a part of it. It may be something related to it. However, you may never know what the need is if you don't ask the question, what's important to you? What is your greatest need? And listen, because you can totally miss the mark, presuming that what you see is the most important thing to them. Again, I'm not talking emergency and basic needs of life. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about having a conversation. A golf course, you may, to that population, that may be a center and resource that provides joy in their daily lives. But maybe it doesn't for you. You're there to learn what's important to them. And that requires asking them. Remember the what question? Open. What's important to you? What are the top 3 needs or issues facing you? And listen and work together to determine how to address them. So that's my take on what so many of you have shared. And I so appreciate it. I look forward to reading the reports. Yay, yippee. So at this point, yeah, please.
Our new youth legislators, I just want you to know that this was covered in a previous meeting, and it's not that assigned activity. You do not have to do it. You're welcome to have a town hall meeting and ask Senator Weiner for her suggestions. But because you're coming in after the meeting where we covered that, you do not have to do that assigned activity.
And hopefully, based on conversation, you've learned a lot from your colleagues who have had their town hall meeting and what they learned from it. And so you've got a leap ahead if you ever want to have this kind of experience going forward. So we have a few minutes to do what has become very valuable in our trainings, and that's to open it up to anything you might want to talk about, any discussion about things today that you might want to clarify, or anything else you might want to talk about, learn about. We have had received some input that this is an important part of what we do, because you get to kind of, nothing formal, nothing formatted. We just get to have a conversation about whatever you want to talk about, what you want to grow, what you want to learn, where you're curious. So I'm open to anything you might want to bring up, maybe from today, or questions or curiosities. Remember, that was a big word we heard earlier. What are you curious about? And maintain that curiosity.
So I did something with my issue, which wasn't exactly mental health is what I wrote about when I applied, but I wrote about concussions and traumatic brain injuries. And so I actually went to a school board meeting and presented some of the policies for my school district. So it wasn't exactly what you would call a town hall, but I did do something kind of similar to what all of you had to do with your town halls.
And I would think that would be a phenomenal example of testifying before a public decision-making body.
Absolutely.
So, and so in response, that would be an example where you could take what you learned from your constituents and then chose to present to those people who have a vote around it.
Yeah. So I'm actually taking some of the suggestions and information that the school board gave to me, and I'm already creating more surveys and using those to forward what I am attempting to do concerning traumatic brain injuries. So.
And how does it feel to experience putting it all together because of skills you've been learning along the way, and you're seeing how it all works together? How does that feel?
I think that, well, so personally, in September of last year, I received a traumatic brain injury, which is part of the reason why I have these red glasses on, because I still have symptoms from it. But it felt really good to be able to put all that information together and be able to present it and have people who I didn't know what their response was going to be actually receive it really well and with open arms to what I was trying to make happen.
Thank you for sharing that.
Youth Legislator Lara, I see your hand.
Yes, so going forward with the NYL, would we be hosting meetings more in person, or would it still be virtual? Because I'm assuming that we're planning on going to Carson City in August for a 2-day training. It's not going to be virtual. But
No,
I don't want to know if you have any knowledge or info about how the NYL is going to be held.
And I know that we've, this has been a question that we've discussed before. Our intention for the 2-day training in Carson City, and as I mentioned earlier in the annual report, that typically, interestingly, the pandemic invited us to create a different inaugural training for you. We've not done that training the way we did with you before. Historically, we start with the training that you're going to have in August, and then we do one that's solely around bill drafting and so on the second year, the midterm. What you had is a better start, a better inaugural, and the 2-day training in Carson City is, Tina and I said, this is how it is supposed to be. Gee, go figure, right? So it's everything we're going to teach you in August lands so magnificently to the second year of the program. I can say our intention is to continue to go in person thereafter. It would be in person down here, and then it would be youth legislators in the north would attend. This is historically how we've done it, based on what I know of past. would go to the legislature of Carson City and sit in one of the hearing rooms, and they would attend virtually because we can't bring everybody together for every training and meeting. But we still engage participation and so on. So the biggest group would be in Southern Nevada at the Grant Sawyer Building. Right now, it is our intention that next year would be in person, based on what circumstances are right now. And it is the legislature's program, and it's their decision to make. And we will certainly follow the requirements that the senior administrators determine at the legislature. But currently, if we get that 2-day training, then it is our intention and our expectation, based on what we know now, that we can continue to go in person thereafter. Is that fair to say, Tina? And the second year is a different model than the first year. It isn't more of the same. It's a totally, the year one builds your skill set so that you can move into year two. It's a different, it's not more of the same. It's different, way different.
We
But it
will
builds
take
on-
it. We will take the cue from the legislative meetings. So as long as the legislative meetings are meeting in person, then I believe we will be meeting in person too.
And we'll keep you posted, because again, it's not our decision. It's the legislative council director and other higher ups. And it's a great way to put it. We will model what's happening with the elected legislators and take direction from the legislative administrators. That's the best we have now. We'll keep you posted.
Youth Legislator Dimison, or I should say Chair-elect Dimison, I saw you had a hand up. Do you still want to be recognized?
Thank you for the recognition, Chair Moss. No, that question was answered for myself, so it's perfectly fine. Thank you.
All right. Just a little thought process from me personally. With our 2 new youth legislators, I'm very excited to work with you guys and talk to you guys even more. I know I'm going to be having a conversation with Youth Legislator Thornton very soon here, because we're paired activity partners. I'm very excited to meet with you two and talk one-on-one even more. And just, going through a election in this program and not being involved in it as a candidate was almost like, it felt weird, to say the least. And I'm very excited for our next leadership team. And I can't wait this is going to make a couple of you laugh. I can't wait to pass on the gavel at our next training. So I can't wait. I wish Youth Legislator Dimison and Youth Legislator Lyle the best of luck. My door will be open, regularly be open. I won't say always, so that I don't have to, I'm not held to it, but my door will be open to you too, if you need anything. It has been an amazing year. I know my term doesn't end until May 31st, but I don't think I'll see all of you up till then. So I just wanted to kind of give my final sentiments now. So
My encouragement as a follow-up, Mr. Chair, would be that you will see everyone at our May virtual visit. And if I may kind of bounce off what you've just shared, we will have more conversation there. We will have a questionnaire that Tina will send out. She and I will work on it, send out, so you can think ahead, think in advance. And I want you to know that what we ask you to contribute, this is a big, big give back to the program. What you contribute and the suggestions you make from the perspective of youth legislators who are living this experience for the first time, because we've been doing it. We are so vested in learning from each of you what we can do to enrich and elevate the program even more. some of the suggestions of past conversations have been so extraordinary, and we are open to what suggestions you make. Today, for example, on the annual report, thank you for the suggestion to include wisdom or comments from at least one legislator and at least one alum. That adds richness to the annual report in ways we hadn't thought about before. So thank you for that. And it will be up to you and your colleagues, Mr. Chair, reaching out. Please contribute suggestions, send them to the chair so that he can include them in the annual report, which is fast approaching because we have a deadline for you to get to us and we can review it and get everything done. You all are wise. Here's the interesting thing. You are seasoned beyond your years and continue to have the curiosity of youth that so many people wish they still had. That is a beautiful combination. And people often ask me, what are the qualities that make my life meaningful and rich? And I probably shared it with you before, and it's worth repeating. The very first is curiosity for me. Curiosity. That child in me wants to know. I'm constantly asking questions. And when I do, and I'm just a little investigator about some of the smallest things in other people's eyes are very big to me. That keeps me moving forward, having fun with life. I have fun doing this, and joy. So for me, it's curiosity, fun, and joy. And I want all of you to know, having worked with this program since the day it was introduced on the floor of the Senate for consideration to this very moment, you are adding curiosity and fun and joy to my life. I thank you for that. I appreciate you for that. And allowing Tina and me and Maria and others and our legal team, all of us, to grow through what it is you contribute to this program and what it is, the energy you bring to this program because of the curiosity, fun, and joy that you willingly invest in what we do individually and together as a Nevada Youth Legislature. So I'm thankful for all you. And I'm going to speak for Tina. I'm going to go out on a limb. We are so excited to have the virtual visit to learn more from you about how we can make this a bigger and better program as we go forward because of your contributions. So thank you in advance. And so we'll have more opportunities for you to speak, Mr. Chair, and also Mr. Vice Chair at the May virtual visit. And Tina, she and I will work on the questionnaire that you'll receive so you can think about it in advance rather than leaving and saying, oh, I wish I'd thought about that. We know the value of getting things to you before you're on tap to share. So we'll get that out to you very soon.
Thank you, Senator Weiner. Are there any more questions, comments, concerns, discussions amongst the youth legislators? Youth Legislator Bentham, I see your hand. You are recognized.
I just wanted to ask this question for Senator Weiner. I was listening to everybody talk about their town hall meetings, and this is my first meeting, and I was just wondering, because I was really inspired by it and it sounded like they learned a lot, and I want to do my own, but how would I go about that, and what topics would I discuss and things like that?
We will certainly send you, Tina, if you would, the handouts and the materials that we developed about town hall meetings to prepare for them and how to organize them and how to promote them. All of the youth legislators received that in their training materials. We're not holding you to any timeline on it, but it's a phenomenal experience. So we'll send you those materials. And also, because you didn't have the advantage of the training, there are two options. Tina, we have a recording of that. We don't. Okay. So here's option number 2 that's actually now option number 1. Tina, if you contact Tina, we can schedule a Zoom visit so that we can visit with you and our other, of course, new youth legislator accordingly if there's an interest there. But we could schedule a little briefing visit that could answer questions that the youth legislators had the opportunity to ask and find answers to before they did their town hall meetings. Give you a little synopsis of what the training material was like and the conversations around that. So if you want to, Tina, the two, we'll come up with an opportunity to have a visit. And you and your newest colleague, if indeed that, Tina, let's offer to both of our new youth legislators, if indeed that looks like something that would work. Again, we weren't going to require it because of the timing and timeline. If you're eager to do it, we're there for you.
And youth legislator Bentham, and that this goes for youth legislator Thornton. I know we've been able to get in contact, youth legislator Bentham. If you need any advice on town halls too, so I've already gone through mine. If you need anything in terms of questions, you can always reach out to me too. I just want to put that out there. And that goes for you, youth legislator Thornton, as well. My number is on that sheet. I'll get back to you faster through text message or call than email. So if you guys need a resource that's a little closer to home with a peer, I'm always, or you know what, Senator Wiener, you might not like this, but I'm going to say it. I'm always open. I'll always make sure to message you back. So
You have lots of witnesses to that promise. It's recorded.
Here, I'll even put some evidence out there that I'm willing to help you. Here's my text messages with youth legislator Bentham already. So there's some evidence that that promise won't go, what's the word? Won't go unfulfilled. How about that? So if there's any, does anyone have any more questions, comments, concerns, discussions for the NYL? Senator Wiener, is there any closing remarks? All right.
Great meeting and training, and congratulations to our new officers, and congratulations to our first term chair and vice chair for work well done. I might add, I did, and we'll schedule this, we'll determine when it works, that I do provide coaching / training opportunities that I sit down with each chair and vice chair as before they begin their terms and walk through some of those experiences that might show up. And it's completely different for the second year as it is for the first. So we will make that, we'll clarify that more as we get closer to it for the new team.
All right. Well, with that, we'll move on to itinerary item number 8, which is adjournment. That concludes the training for today. Thank you, everyone. See you virtually on May 11th and see you in person, fingers crossed, in Carson City on August 3rd and 4th. Thank you all for coming and have an amazing day.
Thank you
Have
all.
a wonderful rest of your afternoon.
Bye. Thank you so much.
So much.